In this video, I'm going to show you how I built this small desk out of lumber. To make the desktop, I'm going to be using three 34-inch long pieces of premium grade 1x6. I measure for the placement of the pocket holes for the assembly of the desktop. To make the pocket holes, I use my Craig pocket hole jig, and I start by setting it up. First, I set the jig to 3/4 of an inch, which is the thickness of the 1x6. Then I take my stop collar and set it on the drill bit using the gauge provided in the case, and set that to 3/4 of an inch. I line the jig up with my mark, and I clamp it in place with a clamp. The desktop is assembled using 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws. I use a belt sander with a 120 grit sanding belt to sand the desktop smooth, especially the seams between the boards. Each leg set of the desk is composed of the following 2x6 boards: two 5.5 inch long square pieces, one 14.5 inch long piece with angles cut. The 14.5 inches is on the long side, one 16.5 inch piece, and one 24 3/4 inch long piece. For the 2x6 boards, I'm using my single hole Craig jig. I place it 1.25 inches from the end of the board as per the instructions. To adjust the drill bit, I go back to the Craig jig case and loosen the stop collar. I then slide it to the position for 1 1/2 inch thick material and tighten it. I measure and mark for the placement of the vertical supports of the desk so that they will be centered. The blocks that serve as the feet of the desk are attached to the 16.5 inch long piece using 2.5 inch long screws. To assemble the vertical portion of the leg set, I first check to make sure the board is plumb, and then I screw it in using 2.5 inch pocket hole screws. There are 2 screws on this side, and then there's one in the center on the opposite side, for 3 screws total. The top piece is aligned and attached using the same 2.5 inch pocket hole screws, 2 on one side, 1 on the other. The long side goes on top. To fill in the pocket holes, I use pocket hole plugs. I start by putting some wood glue in the hole. Then I insert the plug and use a hammer to tap it into place. I use my belt sander to sand down the pocket hole plugs. I cut some brace pieces out of 2x2 boards. These are decorative, not structural. The brace pieces are 25 3/8 inches long, and the angle that I cut on them is 17 degrees. To install the decorative 2x2 braces on the leg sets, I first made pencil marks to center them, and I use a little bit of wood glue on the ends of the brace to stop it from wiggling around once it's installed. I line it up with my pencil marks, and I use 2-inch pocket hole screws to screw it in place. Now normally with wood of this thickness, one would use 2.5-inch pocket hole screws, but I found through experimenting with scrap that because of the angle, the 2-inch screws work better in this particular application. The pocket holes left from the brace installation are filled with wood glue, and then pocket hole plugs are inserted. I use a router to cut a groove in a piece of 1x4 board. This groove will be used for mounting the bottom of the drawer. The pieces of 1x4 board that are needed to construct the desk drawer are as follows: 2 12 3/4-inch long pieces, 2 12-inch long pieces with grooves cut, 1 18 5/8-inch long piece, and 1 21 1/8-inch long piece. To assemble the drawer box, I use 1 1/4-inch pocket hole screws. I use these angle clamps to hold the boards together and in alignment while they are being screwed together. I measured and found the center of the 21 1/8-inch long board, which will serve as the front of the drawer. I use a drill press and a 3/16-inch diameter drill bit to drill a hole in the center of the front of the drawer for placing a knob. On the inside of the drawer front, I measured in 2 inches from each end. This tells me where the inside edge of the drawer box is and allows enough room to accommodate the slides and rails for the drawer. The drawer bottom is cut from 1/4 inch thick plywood. The drawer bottom is attached using wood glue. And also 7/8 inch brad nails. The drawer rails are attached to the bottom of the desktop using 1¼ inch pocket hole screws. These extra boards here are just scrap to give me something to attach my clamps to. As can be seen here, the parts of the desk have been stained. The desktop and the drawer box have been stained with a chestnut stain, and the leg sets have been stained using a blue-colored stain. The desk has also been varnished with 2 coats of varnish, except for the desktop and the drawer front, which have 4 coats, because these are the areas that get the most wear. I am ready to begin the installation of the drawer slides on the drawer box. First, I measured up 1¼ inch from the bottom of the drawer box because the instructions that came with the slide state that the top of the slide should be 1¼ inch from the bottom of the drawer. I then marked for my pilot holes, which I will be drilling using a 5/64 inch drill bit, which is short enough as to not go all the way through the wood. The drawer box portion of the slide is then attached to the drawer box using the screws provided with it. The other part of the drawer slide is attached to the drawer rail using the screws provided with it. Clamps hold the drawer slide in place while it is being attached. I got the drawer installed and working. I would like to point out that it's very important to have a small gap of approximately 1/8 inch between the top of the drawer box and the bottom of the desktop, because if you don't, the drawer will have a tendency to jam and be very stiff. I got the leg sets in position and ready to attach to the desktop. I've pre-drilled pilot holes for the screws. The pilot holes are in 1.5 inches from this edge and 3/4 inch from each of these edges, and the center one is in the center of the board. The screws I'm going to be using are 2 inches long. A knob is attached to the drawer front. I attach furniture gliders to the bottom of the desk feet. Here's what the completed desk looks like.